Hey, this is entry 7 of Bill Adkin's life. He's got a great story to tell and a little surprise ending. Go ahead, Bill.
Hi there. When I retired at 65, I was asked by a lady at church if I could help out Lamer's bus line by driving students to school. And I said, well, I don't do a hell of a lot now because I retired. So I went there on the following, this was on a Sunday. She and her husband were members of our church. And so on Monday morning, I went there and saw her. And she said, oh boy. And so she and another woman talked to me and walked me around the bus. And this gal said, all right, get in the bus, we're gonna drive. So we drove wherever she wanted me, a route that takes tight turns and stuff like that to see just how good I was with accuracy. And after we were done, she said, Bill, you passed with flying colors. You have to take a written test for the state. They've allowed me to test you this way, and now you've passed that, so all you need to pass is a written test. So I studied for that the next day, and I said, all right, I'm ready, and she gave me the test. And when I was done, she checked it, and I missed one question. And I was very happy about that. And the next day, I got my license, and they assigned me a trip for the following day. So it was really fast. I probably broke the records of how fast a guy could come in there and be a part of the team that quickly. So I went ahead and drove my routes in the morning, and I had no problems, none whatsoever. But I sang a couple of songs to the kids to relax them and help them understand my personality. And I drove them for a year. And Thanksgiving, a couple of kids gave me some gifts and appreciation gifts. And I said, well, that's awfully nice of you. And at Christmas time, no, excuse me, I'll back up. At end of school, the last day, the kids came up to me and handed me some gifts from them, and I had tears in my eyes. It really hit me how they could show their appreciation, because I had witnessed some problems where a driver, a lady, happened to be a lady driver, I had problems with her students, and she was yelling at them, and she used to talk about them, and they were awful, and so on. And I thought, isn't that too bad? She just doesn't know how to control a mob. And at the end of the day, I went home with these gifts, and I said to Rita, I said, look at what these kids gave me, showing their appreciation. And she said, boy, isn't that nice? And
So is this how you ended up going to New York City with them?
Okay, let me keep going. So the next month, I went to the manager of safety, and he was responsible for the motor coach drivers. And I said, is it possible that I could drive a motor coach? He said, absolutely. He said, let me take you out in one and see what you can do. So they had two sizes of buses, 47 passenger and 55. So we went in a 47 passenger, and the one he chose was a stick shift 6 speeds, and he probably felt that I couldn't even do that right. But I am familiar with truck transmissions, and I'm familiar with driving stick shift. So around Green Bay, I made the corners okay. He tested me on a real tight turn, and I passed it with flying colors, and he was very impressed. And he said, okay, you got a deal. I'm going to arrange for the office to assign you some driving around the city for people, and maybe baseball games, stuff like that. Because Milwaukee was where we took people to watch baseball. And so I tested out for about 4 months, and he and I were talking one day, and I said, okay, what's the chance of taking trips? He said, a good chance. And so I was assigned a trip, and I had a driver with me, but he wasn't driving, he was just behind me to help me in case I was creating my own problem. And I passed it with flying colors. I think we went out for a day trip, and then I went out for a couple of evenings trip, 2 overnights. And finally he said, okay, you're cleared. And so I started taking people, adults and kids, to wherever they wanted the charter to go. And I started going to New York. And I loved New York. And of course, a lot of drivers would not go to New York because the traffic was absolutely horrible, especially taxis. And I said, I don't give a damn about the taxi. He has to give me right away eventually, you know. So I had no problems. And I started taking kids to different places in New York, the Staten Island, the Statue of Liberty, the place where the people came into the country and signed in. They used to call it the Trail of Tears because it was so sad, where they had to say, no, you cannot come in, you're sick, or whatever. And I really enjoyed taking, especially students, to different places in New York. And I really started learning the place. Well, one day I got a charter, and it was to New York, and off I went. Now, during all of this time, I took these kids to one special place that was special for me, and that was Carnegie Hall. And I really loved it there. And the manager of tickets and so on, he and I got along very well. And he said, Bill, if you ever come to New York with your wife, you must call me and let me know, and I'll give you a personal tour of this place. I said, oh, thanks very much. And I forgot about it. But then all of a sudden, Rita decided she would like to go to New York with me. And she said, why don't we invite Mel and Eileen? Because she said, I know that they've never been in New York. So we invited them, and they jumped at the chance. He was a veterinarian. And off we went. And when the plane landed, I had a hotel downtown on 9th Street, which was reasonable. I made arrangements for us to go touring all over New York City, and we did. And one day we were done touring, and I said, okay. I called up the Carnegie Hall, and I talked to a friend of mine, and he's waiting for us to show us Carnegie Hall. Would you guys like to go? Oh yeah! So we took a cab and went over, and met him. And he took us all over the building, history, all kinds of interesting information. And during our tour, we slowly climbed the building, up, 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 and finally reached the very top, which I call laughingly the nosebleed section. And we were up there looking at the place, and there were two men that were practicing for an opera, and beautiful voices. And I said, my gosh, the acoustics are awesome here. Way up there, you'd think that you couldn't hear them very well, but you could. And so we slowly came down and ended at the stage. And he said, well, I'm going to leave you here. I got other things I have to do. And so you guys have a great time here in New York. And so we were all talking, and I said, hey, Mel. I said, how would you like to sing a song? He said, sure. And we jumped up on the stage. And I said, do you know row, row, row your boat? He says, yeah. I said, do you know how to do the round? He said, yeah. So we started. And we sang about 3 rounds of that, and ended. And of course, to our wives, we bowed to them, and we got all this applause from way up in the nosebleed section. And all these kids were touring, and so evidently during the tour ended up there, and they were impressed with our funny stuff going on down on the stage, and they applauded. And I said, well, look at there, Mel, we got a standing ovation. And I've told that story many, many times to people, saying that I sang at Carnegie Hall and I got a standing ovation. And it's a funny story, and it's very enjoyable for me. And that's it.
So how about we sing it?
You want to sing it?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, merrily, merrily,
your
merrily,
boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. Merrily, 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 your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. Merrily, 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 your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. Merrily, 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 your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. Yay! And that's entry 7.